Welcome to the new adventures of the Bakery Bears. In this series, we're taking you to brand new destinations and we're discovering amazing stories. And along the way, we'll of course be uncovering the site's interestability, knitability, and the all-important picnicability. And today we've got something truly wonderful for you as we search for St Godric. But where does our story start? Right here in the heart of this Benedictine priory. And this is the tomb of a 105-year-old man. Now, he was an amazing man because he lived right here as a hermit for 60 years. This is the tomb of St Godric. And whilst our hero's story might have ended here, one of its most exciting and life-changing moments came here, nearly 80 years before. We're making our way out to the deck of a great medieval caravel that's about to set sail for Jerusalem in the year 1096. We're travelling with Baldwin of Boulogne, and we're part of the very first crusade to the Holy Land. Baldwin would find himself at the head of an all-conquering army, and within 2 years would be crowned the first king of Jerusalem. And who is our captain on this long and dangerous voyage? It was Godric. Now, he was born in Norfolk in 1065, so a life on the high seas was always highly probable, as that's bang on the coast. Now, before his famous voyage with Baldwin, he rose up the ranks of seafarers to, actually, by the time that he took his famous voyage with Baldwin, he was actually a boat owner. Now, future kings did not travel on unimportant vessels, oh no. 38-year-old Godric's ship must have been pretty impressive. His ship was called a cog, which was the most common seagoing vessel in the Middle Ages, with a bridge at the back for the captain to steer and navigate, and a deck at the front for your most important guests. For an 11th century king in waiting, this was travelling in style. For the next 5 years, Godric sailed his ship to the four corners of the known world, and the story goes, when times were hard, he even raised the Jolly Roger. Godric was most certainly a true medieval man of the sea. Now, I'm guessing you're probably starting to wonder how Godric ended up here on the banks of the River Wear in County Durham. Well, for us to fully understand his journey from pirate to hermit to religious saint, the first thing we need to understand is what exactly is a priory.
A priory is a type of religious community that existed in the Middle Ages. Similar to a monastery, it would also consist of a group of monks and nuns who lived together in common and took monastic vows of obedience, poverty, and chastity. The heads of priories were called priors or prioresses. Often in England, but not always, priories were affiliated with cathedral churches. And this was the case with Finchale, which was affiliated with Durham Cathedral. Sometimes, but not always, priories were smaller than monasteries. Sort of the ideal for a monastic house was to have at least 12 members headed by an abbot or an abbess, reflecting the number of Christ's apostles.
About 5 years after Godric's adventure with Baldwin, he found himself on Lindisfarne, and it's a place very similar to here actually. There's a beautiful priory, and on Lindisfarne lived a man that captivated and changed Godric's life forever. This is the beautiful island of Lindisfarne, known to so many as Holy Island. And here is Lindisfarne Priory. At the time of Godric's visit, it was already 400 years old, and thousands of people flocked here every year on pilgrimage. Now, who knows quite what it was that brought so many to this remote island on the northeast coast of England, but whatever it was, captivated Godric as well. During his visit, he uncovered the story of a famous hermit who had lived around the island, and he set his heart on following exactly the same path. He returned to England and visited here, Durham Cathedral, where he convinced the bishop to grant him a place to live out his years as a hermit. And Godric ended up here, 4 miles sort of northeast actually of Durham. And I wonder what he thought when he arrived here, because when he did arrive here, there was none of this. It was just river and trees and woods. And I wonder how long he thought he was going to stay here. Because if you think about it, in medieval times, 45 was old. That was an old man. It was only really religious men like the Pope and like archbishops that lived to that age and even longer. So he must have thought that his days were numbered. Little did he know that he would spend the next 50 years of his life right here.
But it's not difficult to see why he did. For a man of the sea, the River Wear provided the perfect backdrop. This would have been a very similar view to what Godric saw on his first days here. And in 60 years, all he built was a fish pond so he could catch food to eat, a mill so he could make bread, and a chapel which he named after John the Baptist so he could pray. Now he slept outside in all weathers, and he used only branches from the trees as protection from the elements.
But Godric wasn't completely alone. He'd of course been gifted this land by the Bishop of Durham, and the Bishop of Durham had a whole team of Benedictine monks who were working with him at Durham Cathedral to run the diocese and to tend to the flock. And the Benedictines quickly got very excited. The monks, you imagine, into their community comes a man who's lived a life on the high seas. He's perhaps even been a pirate, and suddenly he's living in the midst of them. So they were coming up here and they were coming to talk to him, and they wanted to hear his stories. And he quickly gained a reputation for a man who would give out really intelligent and worldly wise advice. But who were the Benedictines?
The Benedictines, also known as the Black Monks because of the black habits that they wear, were one of the great medieval monastic orders. They got their start when Benedict of Nursia, or Saint Benedict, founded a monastery in 529 at Subiaco in Italy. In addition, he wrote the Rule of Saint Benedict, the monastic rule by which all Benedictines lived and still do live their lives. Monks and nuns entering the Benedictine order, who agree to live by this rule, essentially take 3 vows when they join the order. The first is a vow of stability, that they will remain in the same community for their entire life. The second, conversion to the monastic way of life. So it's a complete mental change, sort of bring oneself into line with the monastic way of living. And the third vow is obedience to the head of one's community and to the church.
Now, the Benedictines liked a good gossip, and I'm actually sat in the chapter house, and this is where they would have sat and had a gossip. If you liked a good gossip, you wanted to get up here to Finchale and you wanted to come and talk to Godric, because his stories were absolutely amazing. And very quickly, they started to write down as much as they could about him. And I've actually got some things here that tell us exactly what Godric looked like. Here we go. He was vigorous and strenuous in mind, whole of limb and strong in body. He was of middle stature, broad-shouldered and deep-chested, with a long face, grey eyes most clear and piercing, bushy brows, a broad forehead, long and open nostrils, a nose of comely curve, and a pointed chin.
But Godric is best known for his kindness towards animals. He regularly hid stags from passing hunters, and he even allowed snakes to warm themselves by his nighttime fires. But this is when I get really excited, for Godric was also a bit of a musician. He's unbelievably important because 4 hymns written by the man himself travelled down the centuries unchanged to us today. They are in fact the oldest surviving songs in English that we have the original musical notation for. Godric's story became world famous, and leaders such as Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, and Pope Alexander III travelled here to seek his advice.
For 50 years, Godric lived here, passing out wisdom, taking care of animals, giving advice to popes and archbishops. But eventually, illness struck him. Now, his biographer actually wrote his biography in real time when it was happening, and I want to just refer to something he said about him. For the last 8 years, Godric was bedridden and beset by devils in physical form. This perhaps must have been growths, maybe, possibly even tumours. And finally, St. Godric died, and he was laid to rest right here in Godric's tomb. Now, he's not actually here anymore. He was taken away and no one actually knows where he is now. But this is what's left of Godric's tomb.
We're now walking in the footsteps of the first monks of Finchale Priory. 27 years after Godric's death, the foundations of the future priory took root with the construction of these first priory buildings under the instruction of its first prior, Thomas. These were always designed to be temporary as the main church, cloister and all we're used to seeing at religious houses were constructed. What makes Finchale so unbelievably rare is the fact we can still see these buildings. Normally they were built over or demolished. I've visited many abbeys and priories across Europe and I've never seen remains like these before.
But how did Godric get nominated for a Pulitzer Prize? And when was this beautiful Benedictine priory built? We're going to find out all of that later on in the show.
I think I'm ready for a picnic.
Oh, okay. Well, I was ready for a knit, but if you want a picnic first, that's just fine.
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll go find the perfect spot and we'll see you later on. Look, this is a really nice spot for a picnic.
It's a very nice spot for a picnic. But what?
There's no buts,
Okay.
is there?
Well, no. I don't think there is. Oh, you're telling me not to give a but?
Let's not mention any bugs.
Alright, I won't mention any bugs.
Well, no, you'll have to now.
There are no bugs. I cannot see a single bug. It's bugless.
Compared to last time,
Yeah,
I mean, look at the view.
it's lovely.
And can you hear people? Is there people walking in front of us?
No people.
Yes, there are some people around,
Not many.
but they're just around having a nice time.
No birdies.
And the birdies, there's loads of amazing birds. And there is a cafe right over there
there is a cafe.
that sells ice creams. There
Sells
is
ice
a
creams.
toilet
Yeah, there is.
up the way. There's
Yeah.
a car park with picnic tables.
Yeah.
This is a
Pretty
hard
good.
place to score down
Mm.
because that cafe is serving proper food.
Oh, was it?
Yes,
Right.
and it looks nice. Will we be trying a cup of tea?
We'll be having a cup of tea, I think. I
Right.
think we'll have a cup of tea.
Right. So, what are your thoughts?
On picnicability?
Yeah.
I don't know that I could score it down, really.
You're permitted to score it one down because it's by the river and there's some bugs around.
Okay, I'll give it 9 then, because it's by a river and there's a few bugs.
And I concur.
Right.
It's most definitely a 9. We are off to a great start.
Very good, yeah.
Now, what an amazing story we're discovering here of the pirate turned amazing hermit, and then here we are sat in this amazing Benedictine priory. And the interesting thing is, isn't it, that if you think about Finchale, that's how you pronounce it, Finchale
It is
Priory.
funny that you pronounce it that way, isn't it?
Well, that will be Old English. This, along with Jervo, along with Bylands and Riva and Fountains, all those places are our favourite places to go have a knit and have a visit. And isn't it
Yeah.
amazing that we know so much about those places? Now, have you ever wondered how we know so much about places like this?
I'll just ask you and you know it all.
Well, I don't know as much as someone I know who knows an
Oh.
awful lot more. I think we should find
Yes.
out from someone who knows an awful lot more than we do
I do too.
about how we know so much about these amazing religious houses.
A great percentage of the surviving sources that we have from the Middle Ages are from religious houses, religious establishments, churches. And this is even more true the earlier you travel back into the Middle Ages, before the creation of government chanceries to record government records. Churches were really the record-keeping powerhouses of the Middle Ages. Of course, we're talking about a time prior to the invention of the printing press, so all of the records that we have are handwritten manuscripts. And until later in the Middle Ages, they're pretty much all on parchment, which is animal skin, often calf or sheep. So there's numerous different types of sources that survive, even just from a religious house or a church. One of the most common types of sources is what we call a charter. These are short, oftentimes relatively formulaic documents that record gifts or sales or exchanges of land or property or grain or money or the outcome of litigation. Charters help answer historians' questions about how a house came to be founded, its relationship to other monastic houses, what types of donors helped support each monastic establishment, what these donors wanted to get in return for their donation. If you make a donation to a monastic establishment, the hope is that the monks or nuns will pray for you and your soul, and this is a spiritual benefit that you get in return for your donation. There's surviving account books, there's surviving liturgical manuscripts, so these are the sorts of books that are used in saying the daily monastic offices, the set out hours of prayer that each monastery performs daily. So these are things like breviaries or psalters or gospel books. There's many other types of surviving sources from monasteries in the Middle Ages, things like letters and records of visions and mystical experiences, records of bishops' visitations. I could go on, and I won't. But from Finchale, to be a little bit more specific, there are surviving charters, inventories, and account rolls.
And with that knowledge that we learn from those amazing records, we can take a tour of the abbey and we can know pretty accurately what was going on.
90 years after Godric's death, the most important part of the priory was completed. This is the church, and it's the first part of the site that you approach as you arrive at Finchale. To the right of the entrance is a storeroom which to us looked like a place where you might store your cloak before Mass. But as we walk through the church's main door, we enter the nave, with the monks' choir beyond where they would sit to sing offices. The choir of course also contained the high altar and the tomb of St Godric.
So here we are in the heart of the church. Follow me. Let's go for a little walk up and try not to fall over. This could be interesting. It's the most sacred part of the church, and what's amazing about this little place is stuck on the banks of the River Wear, quite a long way from anywhere. Some of the things that you find here are some of the best examples that you'll find anywhere in the country. Keep coming. Look at this. This is a capital. Can you see? It's a pillar. And it's some of the best formed. I've actually never seen anything that looks like that in any of the places that we've ever visited. You've got some exactly the same over here as well. Can you see? Now when these originally would have been built, there would have been none of this stone here. You would have seen the absolutely beautiful columns supporting the ceiling above. This in particular is really interesting. This is called the sedilia. It comes from the Latin word sedil, and sedil means seat, and this is where the priests used to sit. So the altar was up there, and when the priest needed to sit down in the middle of Mass, that's where they would sit down. Now the other really interesting bit is just up here. Come and have a close look. This is the piscina. And the piscina, again, for Latin, these are all Latin words. It's pool or sink, and we've got two sinks here, and this is where anything that was used within the surface would be washed. And the most important thing with a piscina is that the drain goes straight down to the soil, because holy water can only go straight down to dirt. So that's where these drains would have gone. It's an amazing place. Just have a look down there. Now, as we explore through, we start to see things that we recognise. Just come through here. Now watch your step, camera woman. Look at this. It's the cloister. Now we've seen these already in places like Fountains Abbey and Revo Abbey, but this is like in miniature.
This beautiful cloister attached the church to all the buildings needed to successfully run a religious house. This would have been the busiest part of the priory, with monks making their way to church, or maybe the chapter house, or even the refectory for their lunch. We even know the name of some of the men who served here, from Henry de Teesdale to Roger Mainsford. But this was no normal cloister, because Finchale had a very special purpose.
Because this was the medieval equivalent of a holiday resort. We all need some rest and relaxation, don't we? And that includes monks, and that's what they used to do. They would book in here and they would come and spend time at this wonderful place where Godric had given out all his wisdom. They thought if they came here they would get the ultimate in rest and relaxation. They had wonderful dormitories behind you, a great place to have some food, a lovely place to come and sit out in the sun. Still, the life of the priory had to carry on. So 8 times a day they would come down from their dormitory and they would make their way down this side of the cloister into the church for all the services that Benedictines used to preach. There was only ever 8 monks in residence here at Finchale, so they didn't really need a particularly big chapter house. Look at this!
Oh,
This chapter house is literally the size of my sitting room.
it is.
It's absolutely amazing. Now, one of the most atmospheric parts of any abbey that you go visit, in my opinion, is the frater. And the frater is where they would come and they would eat. Now, the monks didn't eat here, they ate above. This is where, it was a storeroom, so there would be grain and foodstuffs which wouldn't rot would be kept down here. And then all the food was then prepared in the kitchen and they used to eat above. But what I love down here is, I love these ceilings. These are just amazing. And you see these, any abbey that you go to, you see these types of ceilings. And to me, it just screams medieval. I love them. This is it. This is the first time I've ever been to a priory or an abbey and actually found the floor level still in place. Now, this has been concreted. Of course the monks didn't do that. But I've never been able to come and stand on the same level that they would have eaten at before. And I love this, it's great. We've got a little staircase there. And here, I'm telling you, this has to have been a loo. Look, you're eating there. The abbot suddenly needs to spend a little penny.
Do you think?
I'm virtually convinced that if you think
We
about
always like finding a loo,
yeah,
don't we?
It wouldn't be a presentation by Godric Productions if we didn't find a medieval toilet.
Nowhere, look.
But this is it. This is the space where all the monks would have come together and eaten their meals.
It's not a bad size for 8 people.
I know, but remember though, that you constantly had people, just like a holiday home. Just think it's a B&B.
Yeah.
It's a medieval B&B.
It's a little bit more than that. Just take a look at this east window of the Priory Church. Of course, it's all gone now, but can you imagine how it must have looked, filled with stained glass? It would have been beautiful outside, but utterly breathtaking inside as the sun rose, lighting up each individual coloured pane. As we leave the Priory Church, which is on our right, the chapter house is going to appear in front of us, and on our left is the home and lodging to the most important man at Finchale Priory. All these buildings appearing on our left belong to one man, the prior.
And what a grand staircase he had. Now, he had a grand staircase here, and it was a grand sight because of the types of people that were still coming to visit after Godric had died. If you think that popes had come here, Thomas le Becket had come here, other people were coming here just to feel the vibe. We always talk, don't we, about how places have a feel, and this place most certainly does. It's just lovely. So there would have been the great and the good of medieval society would have walked down these steps.
Into this stunning room, it's the Prior's Hall. This was where the man in charge of Finchale would have welcomed his most honoured guests. You can see from the columns that this would have been such a grand space. Hundreds of years after his death, Godric's legacy was still bringing much wealth to this small religious house with the visit of thousands of pilgrims. The end came for Finchale in 1536, nearly 400 years after Godric's arrival. Henry VIII's closure of the monasteries of England led to the dissolution of Finchale. This was also when Godric's remains mysteriously disappeared from his tomb, but that hasn't stopped his name living on. It reached its height in 1981 with the Pulitzer Prize nominated publication of his life story, simply called Godric.
We have found.
Do you want a cola bottle?
They're not that good. I wouldn't bother.
Right.
You need to go to Mainsgill Farm Shop
That's true, they're very expensive.
and
though,
pay
but they're very
£2.30,
nice.
but at least you get quality.
I'm now eating a cola bottle, I'm sorry.
These are too gummy.
They're a bit Haribo-ish.
Yeah,
And we're
not
not
good
fond
enough.
of sort of Haribo, are we?
Not anymore, no.
That type of sweet.
I need my medallion.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I'll lose it otherwise. I do.
You're only supposed to do that when we're in the house.
I don't care. It's my badge. I'm a knitter, and I'm proud of it. Honestly, though, am I only supposed to do this in the house?
Yes.
We found the perfect knitting spot. I mean, this is the most epic knitting spot I've ever sat in. Because, let's call it 1100.
Okay.
This was built. And for the next, let's call it 400 years, much wiser people than you or I sat here dispensing wisdom.
Absolutely.
And now we
I wonder
get
if
to sit
anybody
here.
ever sat here knitting.
Well,
I wonder.
that's another story. The question that we must ask ourselves first of all is, how do we score this wonderful place for interestability?
Well, it's got to be a 10, hasn't it?
Do you think so?
Well, I think so. I've been very interested. I deliberately got Dan not to tell me anything about it before we came, didn't I?
Yeah.
He started telling me one day and I'm like, don't tell me. I don't want to know just
We
yet.
shall find out on
Because
the day.
I wanted to find out like you're finding out.
Now, today's journey did not start well.
To get here, you
And
mean?
getting here was a challenge. And
It
that,
was a bit of a challenge, but that's because I think the sat-nav took us a strange way.
yes, it didn't help. But that still meant that we were starting off today on the back foot.
True.
And that dictates even more how great this place is. The fact that we've loved it.
We have loved
The
it.
story is epic.
And we've not even had a cup of tea yet.
We've not even had a cup of tea yet. It's
So
that
that
epic.
is going to make it even better, isn't it, if we have a nice cup of tea?
Now, there is one thing I think I'm going to go 9.
Right. So what's
And I'll
the
tell you
one
why.
point?
The one point is, if you didn't know about places like this, you wouldn't really have a clue on what you're looking at.
No, that's true. There's no information. That is very true.
So it has to be a 9. But this is gearing up to an epic score. Because we're already ahead of Brimham Rocks.
Well, yes. Gosh,
And-
I've got a loose stitch there. I don't know why that is.
And I think 24 was the score, wasn't it, for our first visit of the series. What a truly immense place. So we need to give here a score for knittability.
Knittability. Oh, it's got to be a strong 9. I'm going to go 9.
9. So it's 9s all round. So that's right, isn't it? 9, 16, 28.
No, 9, 18, 27.
Sorry, 9, 18, 27.
That's really bad.
What an embarrassment. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Look, sat right at the top is the wonderful, the marvellous Finchale Priory. And I would strongly suggest that you come and visit, because it is just the business.
Brilliant.
And then directly beneath is the name of the place, which we can't remember, but you can see it, so you can't complain.
That's terrible.
And then below that one, we have, of course, the rather disappointing, and it's an even more of an embarrassing score now, I think, when you consider that Brimham Rocks only scored 15. And here has scored nearly double that.
It has, hasn't it?
But I think justly so,
Yes.
because it's unbelievably quiet, really picturesque,
Yeah.
wonderful story. You can get a cup of tea.
Can get a cup of tea.
There's a toilet that's clean.
Yeah.
Winner all round.
Absolutely.
And so ends our third new adventure. And for the first time in this series, I think we can call this one great.
Because who would have thought a place so familiar to us would have a story so far-reaching and epic?
From crusades, kings, and piracy on the high seas.
To a simple life under the stars, passing out wisdom to archbishops and popes.
Godric's life is a lesson to us all. He was an everyman on the fringes of history, but he rose to greatness through his goodness. And that's what I love about history. Hidden in the stones of Finchale Priory is a story that we never expected to find. I wonder what we'll discover next time. Oh, I need to do the sound. 1, 2, and I'll actually walk down these. So you start. Just let me check what I need next. So keep it going. Stood with the priory behind, over the bridge. With the priory behind.
That's fine.
Am I in the sun? Come this way a bit.
Darkness.
If you get in the sun and I'm in the sun, we should be cool.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Stood with the priory. Oh, I need to nail this one. Ready?
Yeah.
You sure?
You didn't want to be close?
I'm going to get close.
Oh.
Kings and piracy on the high seas. Right, someone's coming across, so just you stop it a minute if you want. Clearly it's a popular dog route, but luckily this is our last shot on the bridge. Yippee! Have you started recording?
Yeah.
Never stopped, did you?
I don't think so.
That's fine. It's specific. 88-year-old Godric ship must have been pretty impressive. Let's grab some that way as well.
You need to clap.
Yeah, well remembered. 1, 2. I'm very sorry everybody. We just did a take and I forgot to record it. Cool.
Look, there's some graffiti.
See if you can see any dates.
18 something.
Wow. Go up there actually. And I'll stand right in the middle of it. Because he's not here anymore, so.
So this is where he was. Oh
yeah.
Gosh, nearly fell.
I'm going to refer to the script for one bit because I want to get it right, and I'll say that. Okay, keep filming. Now, I'll start down there and I'll walk up the hill, which will be fun. About 5 years after Baldwin's adventure... No, what am I saying? There's a heron! He's looking for fish!
I can't see him.
Right, I'm coming up.
Oh, I can see him.
Keep it rolling.
You could get loads of people in here. I don't know about 8.
Yeah.
You could get loads.
Well, they've got big vestments on. Look at the size of his seat.
Mm.
Actually, I'll sit up here. Yes. I can
Suits you.
I can feel the power.
Abbott Jones. Tis now.
1, 2 and 2.
Clap.
1, 2. Nice gaff, isn't it?
Nice. Hello.
Hello. Cool. Right, it's recording. I'm going to come towards you with purpose, so don't panic, okay?
I don't need to move.
No.
Let's slow down.
It's alright.
Maybe that was deliberate by the abbot.
Yeah, of course it is. He's more important. Well spotted, well spotted. 1, 2. It's my bag. What do you think?
It's very nice.
It's nice, isn't it?
Suits you.
Yes. Suits you, sir.
Do you want a cola bottle?
Yes, I would love a cola bottle. An additional little picnic treat.
Not,
No, not good enough.
No, they're not really, I'm afraid.
You've got to pay top dollar for quality cola bottles.
If if you eat a third of the
Oh.
bag,
They're too gummy.
yeah, I was going to give you the information, but there's hardly any fat, so I'm going to have one.
Yeah.